Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the IN Knowledge series. Here's wishing you, your team, and your loved ones a very happy and healthy New Year. We hope you had a wonderful holiday season, and let's begin this new year with renewed hope, excitement, and gratitude. So now, in our last session, we discussed fundraising and what do investors look for. So today's session focuses on the art of pitching. How do you structure your pitch, the strategies that you can use to refine your pitch, and also share insights on successful startup pitches? As a founder, you have this wonderful business idea that you think is going to transform the industry. But if you can't present it clearly and concisely, it will be challenging to raise external capital from investors. And not just that, as a founder, Ankit told me that you have to present your idea not only to an investor, right? We had a call earlier this week where we were discussing it's beyond investors. You're pitching your idea to prospective co-founders, employees, customers, advisors, other shareholders, even the media. So the list goes on. And of course, your pitch would change slightly based on who you're speaking to or presenting to, but the underlying skill of communicating well is surely very important. So joining us today are Ms. Revathy Ashok and Ankit Agarwal. Ms. Revathy is the member of the Individual Network and the CEO and Managing Trustee of Bangalore Political Action Committee. Ms. Revathy's successful leadership experience of over 30 years spans a variety of industries. These include private equity, IT, manufacturing, international trading organizations, infrastructure, and real estate. She has been a member of the CII Karnataka State Council and Regional Council and held various leadership positions such as convener of the CII Business Alliance Panel, convener of the Finance and Taxation Panel, co-convener of the Economic Affairs Panel, and has also been a speaker at several industrial forums, including guest lectures at the IIM and other colleges. Now we also have with us Ankit Agarwal, founder and CEO of Kanpur Flower Cycling that goes by the brand name Fool.co, a biomaterial startup that converts temple and farm waste into charcoal-free incense and animal-free leather. Ankit is an Echo and Green and Young Water Fellow. He has been awarded the Gifted Citizen Prize by the government of Mexico and a Bill and Melinda Gates Goalkeeper. Ankit has worked on sustainability projects across 26 countries and is amongst the 21 young leaders selected for extraordinary skills by the Asia Society. Ankit has also received the prestigious United Nations Young Leader for Sustainable Development Goals Award, the Unilever Young Entrepreneur Award, and the GSG Millennial Honor. Prior to founding KFPL, Ankit was an automation scientist at Semantic Corporation. He has 17 research articles published and holds a patent. He's here to give a founder's perspective on the art of pitching and share his experience with refining his pitch. So thank you, Ms. Revathy and Ankit, for your precious time today. To begin, maybe Ms. Revathy, if you could give your initial thoughts on this topic. So as an investor, what do you think defines a good pitch? Ms. Revathy, I believe your microphone's on mute.
First of all, Happy New Year to all the founders out there. It's been a tough year and I'm sure things will get better. Don't lose heart and be out there, go and persevere because behind every successful fundraise, there are 100 failed pitches. I won't call it failed, pitches that have been made which have not led to a fundraise, and all that you hear is the headline. So therefore, welcome to this session, and we'll try to demystify this. As some opening comments, I would like to say, first of all, be the best salesman you can be, because you are the person who has to convince the investor that your idea has to be worth investing in. The investor is looking for your confidence, your big idea, the problem that you're solving, the confidence that you have as a team. Because at the time when we are talking of early pitching, you don't have too much track record. All that you have is your business. And therefore, your confidence, and people are basically investing on you, largely the market, the size of the market and the size of the opportunity and what problem you're addressing. Beyond that, there are not too many numbers that they can focus on. And therefore, it is your confidence that is very, very important. Be authentic, be clear in what you have to say, be focused on the big headline items. Don't get into very, very minute aspects. Convey the big headline items first, and then at follow-on questions, etc., you have always time to discuss a little bit more in detail, but get your highlight points very quick, because those your first opportunity, your goal is to get a second meeting. Your goal is not to get funding at the first opportunity. Nobody is going to fund you at the first. So don't get into elaborate discussions on models, etc. Give your idea and work on getting that second meeting.
Lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that. Ankit, as a founder, tell us about your experience. What has your experience been with preparing your first pitch?
So whether it be a pitch or be it any presentation, right? One thing that I thoroughly believe in and the team does is that there should be logic inbuilt. Logic in the sense of what you are saying, why you are saying that, what is the problem that you're solving, what is the solution, how big is the problem. It is like any Hindi cinema, right? There's an actor, there's a villain, then the actor does something to the villain. So that needs to be communicated well in the pitch. That is one. What we did was, initially we didn't have any connects in the industry. I was doing a job at Semantic, didn't know any VC. I come from a tier 3 city, Kanpur, where there's not much happening. So what we did was we started going to business plan competitions. So we started with IIT Kanpur, then we went to IIM Calcutta, IIM Ahmedabad, ISB. What happens is generally the judges at these competitions are investors or people who know investors. So that is how we started building connects. And nowadays, like over the past 3 years, a lot of things have changed. So now there are competitions which will ask you for a 90-second page, a 60-minute page, describe your business in 5 words and in a tweet or this and that. So, but with my experience, I don't think any investment deal happens on an elevator. I know elevator pitches are very popular, but I've not seen any elevator thing happening. So, all said and done, what happens is these 60 seconds and the 90-second pitches prepare you for small talks. For example, if you get someone high profile or maybe an investor and you want to get their attention drawn, you want to have their contact number, want to have their card, and you want to meet them, then these 60-second, 90-second things, 1-minute things help you convey your business, your idea, and the clarity. So these help you bring the clarity. So that is what I think pitches are all about, and happy to discuss anything further.
Thank you, Ankit. I'm sure there's quite a few questions lined up, but we'll take them one after the other. Ms. Revathy, so you mentioned that a founder should highlight a few important aspects at the beginning, right? It would be good to dive into it a little bit more in depth. So how should a founder structure their pitch, and how much information should they share during their pitch versus leave out information for the Q&A? Because otherwise the pitch would just be endless if they get into every single detail about the venture.
Yeah. So, I would generally say don't go beyond 15 or max 15 to max 20 slides. I mean, 15 slides I think is good enough. If you cannot convey your slides in 15 slides, your message in 15 slides, I think even less would be better. I think there are 6 to 7 key slides. You don't launch into big time statements of mission, vision, and those kinds of things. I think important thing is to address the problem within the first 1 to 2 minutes. If you have not addressed the problem that you are addressing, you have lost the audience. So the important thing is to keep the audience hooked and quickly dive into the problem that you're trying to solve. and why it is important to solve that problem, and how big is that opportunity. Because if the opportunity, there may be a problem you're trying to solve, but the opportunity may not be large enough. So if the opportunity is not large enough, it's not interesting for them. So immediately after you define the problem, you also need to explain why you believe that opportunity is large enough for anybody's consideration. And uh, uh, that there are also, if you have already built some solution or a product around it, very quickly get to that. Because again, people get very antsy if you start delving into too much about the market. One slide about the market and how big it is and what is the addressable size, but again, don't delve too much. People then are eager to know, what are you doing? You've defined the problem, then don't get stuck on the market. Quickly go into the market, but very quickly get to your solution and how that is going to transform the way the problem is currently getting addressed. And then talk about your team. The team is very important, because at an early stage, the investor is really investing in the team. And if you're not able to convey that confidence and authenticity from the team, then that is a big no-no, because they are trying to make an assessment. Are these the people who can deal with a lot of ambiguity? A startup deals with a lot of ambiguity, as opposed to a Series C or a Series D. The ambiguity is much less. In an early stage, at an angel stage, you're dealing with a lot of ambiguity. The business model is not firmed up. Customers are not completely firmed up. You have a few customers. So make sure that all these are conveyed in a very succinct manner.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you for that overview. Ankit, you've won umpteen number of business plan competitions. I know you've told me you've literally mastered how to pitch right. So what is your strategy been? How did you go about refining your pitch, and what are your suggestions for the founders that are listening today?
Okay. So first thing, that one pitch does not fit all. You will have to alter your pitch each time. You'll have to study the audience. For example, if you're meeting an investor, you need to know what their interest areas are. If possible, try and talk to other people whom they've already invested in, get the kind of questions, get the kind of feelings they have. That's one. Second is, I would say not have more than 7 or 8 slides, because see, when we are pitching, we are already a little scared. It's a not a very cozy environment, I would say. So if we have like more than like 8 or 9, 7 or 8 slides, then our attention goes in like flickering, oh, what slide I am on? Or the other thing, people start reading the slides. So the best thing is to have not more than 7 slides, where the first slide should be what your problem you're solving. Second can be how big is the problem, which will address your market size, addressable market, and everything. Third is your solution. Fourth is what you have done till now for that solution. Like maybe you've made a team, you have raised some funds, you have a initial prototype, whatever you've done. Then what is the next steps? What is the big plan? Where you are heading towards? What's your North Pole? Then the competition in the sense, are there other people who are trying to solve the same problem? Then a slide for team, and then a slide for ask. What we generally miss as entrepreneurs is we don't put the ask. So, and it is not necessary that, for example, in the beginning years, we didn't actually know how much money we would need. We didn't have proper financial modeling. So it's not necessary to always ask for money. You can ask for advice. You can ask for business connects. So that is a better way, like to start connecting with people. So these 8 slides are not more than like 5 pointers in each slide, each page. So second thing that I've seen that people do often is they write like complete long sentences on a slide. So you don't have to do that. It's pointers. Pointers are basically just keywords which will help you deliver your like slide, your deck. When investors or anyone, maybe media, anyone who's listening to you, or any business plan competition, they are listening to you. For example, you shouldn't be just focused there was this pitch where I was on stage and suddenly my slides were not working. And I had this option: either I could wait for the people to like adjust the slides, get the connection back, or second was the time was ticking. We had only 7 minutes, so I started talking, and the pitch and the logic was so inbuilt in me that I could deliver my like pitch without having the slides, and I could create the same aura and the same feeling of the product without having the slides. So one must be ready with this thing. Second is, there is no harm in practicing. I used to write each and every word of the pitch, time it, practice it again and again, again and again. Second thing, what I did was, um, as you meet more and more people, you do more and more pitches, right? People will ask you questions. So one should maintain a roster of the questions that people have asked, rehearse their answers. And if a question is coming too many times while you're doing a pitch, then make sure you include that answer directly in your pitch. So that way, at the end, like after like 15 or 20 pitches, you would have a solid database of the questions that people might ask, and your pitch will be like fortified. And if you're aiming at international competitions as well, then one must try and bring international perspective. Like, for example, certain keywords that would work in India wouldn't work in the US. So if you have friends or relatives, family, people, or just like there's LinkedIn, right? So if you can just approach people and ask them to like give you like 5 minutes of their time, just listen to your rehearsed pitch. So that would also help you go like fine tune your pitch better.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Revathy, we get many times, many a times we get asked about when pitching to an investor, especially, we'll get teams asking us, should all of us from the founding team go ahead and present, or can one of us just go ahead and present and the others just attend the pitch session? So what would be your suggestion? How do you perceive this? Do you want one founder to present, or would you prefer the entire founding team to go ahead and present to you?
I think it's all dependent on how you want to run it. There is no firm and fast rule about it. There are people who do, I'm not really, as investors, we are not really fussed about the fact that multiple founders are pitching. But the fact of the matter is, if there are other co-founders, it's a great sign, because you all show interest by, if you all participate, you show some interest. It need not be at the time of the presentation, because if you're making 7 slides or 10 slides, it may be difficult to, unless it's a very long presentation, which is the third or the fourth time that you're meeting the investor for more detailed conversations. That time you may have multiple people doing it. If you have one person presenting, then ensure that the others are not completely silent and don't have nothing to say and they are just present. That doesn't look good. Ensure that if they are, one person is a technology person, the other is a marketing person, the right time to bring those people in would be, when there is a question on marketing or a question on sales. So not to hog the entire show, but to show that, all of them are equally involved, and show the breadth and depth of talent. What you're trying to showcase by allowing them to answer some questions, you don't have to be the know-all of everything. You're also trying to convey to the investor, look, I'm not the only person, but I've got a team behind who is equally competent. That's the subtle message you're giving across. So allow them and give them cues so that people are not jumping into each other. So say, would so-and-so like to take this question? So lead into the other person so that the person knows. So it's all very synchronized, and you be the master conductor, but allow the other people, like an orchestra, allow them to say something at the right time when you know that they can add something meaningful. But don't be at cross purposes. Don't argue with each other. Those are all no-nos. Sometimes, we do make a mistake in our nervousness. We do make a mistake. Unless it's a very serious mistake, which you need to correct, which I think being authentic, I said, is important. You can make the correction. You can say apologies. I think there's a mistake. This is the correct thing. That is good. But don't otherwise, if it's a minor thing, it's not a fact, it's just a small thing, don't bother correcting. I think it's okay. But if there are factual mistakes, you can just say, I think there's an error, and just be honest about it and quickly make those corrections.
Lovely.
But convey that you are working as a team in concert.
Lovely. Sure. Okay, Ankit, let's make it a little interesting if you're up for it. Can you maybe take the founders through, say, a sample pitch? Since you've won so many, we would love to hear from you on what you think is a really good pitch that has worked. So let's try two options, maybe a shorter version and a longer version. Okay, so we can maybe go ahead with the shorter version first, just to see how do you convey your business proposition to an investor. So suppose you had a minute to present your idea. How would you do it?
Sure. So, hi, I represent Fool.co. We are a D2C enterprise where we collect waste flowers from temples and convert them into natural incense and an animal-free alternate to leather. Currently, we upcycle around 2.4 tons of flower every day. Despite COVID, we have been able to double our revenue this year, and we are heading towards being EBITDA positive. Till date, we have raised around $1.9 million in equity investments. Currently, we are looking to raise more than $2 million to increase our reach in the $2.2 billion Indian incense market. Hi, I'm Ankit. If you're interested, let's connect. Thank you.
Fantastic. Lovely. I'll let Ms. Revathy share her insights on this before I do. But Ms. Revathy, what did you think of that pitch? And what did you think you liked about it? What's your feedback to Ankit?
Yeah, I think that's terrific, because the good thing is Ankit was able to make all the very key points in a very, very short and compressed time. And he was able to tell them exactly what was the business he was in, what was the problem he was solving, how much he had already done, that there was a technology element to it, that he was converting it into leather. It's not just it's not just superficial. There is deeper technology in it. Also conveyed how much traction he has. He also conveyed how much money he needs, and how he wants to move forward. All that was conveyed in that very short span. So I think that will explain to you how, depending on the situation, how quickly you can bring the essence of it and tell people all that you need to tell. So you don't have to ask too many questions now. You know all about very quick synopsis of his business.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Revathy, for your feedback. Ankit, if you're up, then we'll look at a slightly longer version. So suppose you caught their attention, or you have a slightly longer duration with an investor or someone you're meeting, maybe 3 to 5 minutes. How would you go about and present that, and what's the content you would cover then?
Okay, so, in every year, about 1.7 million scavengers jump neck deep into clogged sewers and scrape human feces from dry toilets, keep it up on their heads, then walk kilometers to dispose it off in the outskirts of the city. These people are called untouchables. No one even wants to talk about this. When I was 17, I came across manual scavenging and I decided to change it. Last year, I founded this company called Fool.co, where we employ women from the manual scavenger community to collect flowers from temples that would otherwise have been dumped into River Ganges, to convert them into charcoal-free incense and vegan leather. We are catering to respective markets of around $2.2 billion and more than $500 billion. Till date, we have raised around $1.9 million and are looking to raise another $2 million to expand our reach and build our team. Every day, we are collect around 2.4 tons of flowers and flower cycling them, preventing them from polluting the river. Hi, I'm Ankit. Help me, help them. Fool.co. Thank you.
Terrific, Ankit.
So not every, yeah, but there are different versions. Like, it completely depends on what situation, who's listening. So it completely depends.
Yes. So this is the slightly longer version, and let me just comment on it. If all of you were carefully listening, what was the difference between the first one and the second one? Uh, and that is the crucial aspect of it. When you are short of time, you have to get down to the essence of what you need to say. When you have a very, very short time, he didn't talk about his passion, that he was at 17, he was doing this. He didn't have the time in the first case. It was very fact based. At the second pitch, which is slightly longer, he could convey a few more things beyond facts. The few more things beyond facts was there were women who were from the manual scavenging community. He showed his passion from age of 17. So he was conveying a lot more emotion about it and why it is important. He focused a little bit more about the nature of the problem and why it is important, still keeping all the facts and everything. So you figured out the difference between the two. You embellish, the facts remain the same. You obviously don't change the facts, but you embellish it a little bit more by giving it a little bit more packaging each time. Depending on the kind of time that you have, you can provide extra information, but the core information you have already conveyed.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Revathy and Ankit, for that. Okay, we've presented it, you've got your funding, you've moved, you've done well. But the same pitch is something that changes over time. It doesn't stay the same over different stages of your venture. So I'd love to know what are your thoughts on, what changes in the pitch and how do you go about refining it as you grow your venture?
You want me to answer that, or ma'am?
I was thinking Ms. Revathy, but yes. You can take it after. You can add some insights if you had after.
Yes.
Okay. So depending on how evolved it is, and if it is not the early stage first time pitching, but you have raised a round of funding, it's the second or the third round that you're going for. You're obviously, at that time, your idea is a little bit more settled. People have possibly heard a little bit more about it. Therefore, if it is that you will have to add to this early short pitch, you have to add who are all the customers. You have to add a little bit more about your execution capability. You have to add a little bit more about your team. So all of that will have to be added. You have to add a lot more of that kind of data. So execution data becomes very, very critical as you move forward. Therefore, it gets focused more on metrics. It becomes more focused on how your numbers are growing quarter on quarter. So people want to see growth. At an early stage, it's the idea. And yes, you have validated the idea. At the next stage, subsequent stages, the validation of idea is fine. What you are proving is, I have the ability to scale, I have the operational experience, and there is customer satisfaction. If you have some customer feedback and some customer experience, which people have said it's great, and you have some great customer pipelines, you will include some of that into this. Basically, you're saying, I've gone beyond idea, I've gone beyond, I know I can execute. You're trying to convey, not only is there no idea risk, there is no execution risk. That is what you're trying to convey in the pitch.
Lovely, thank you. So show more of market validation and how the market has adopted to it and how efficiently you
and a little bit more about the competition and how you're doing against competition.
Lovely. Thank you so much. We promised the founders that we'll keep enough time for question and answers at every session. So I think we can open it up and go ahead and hear from what they have to say and the questions they have. Just I do see quite a few that have come through already, and there were some via the registration form as well. I'll start with those. In the meantime, to the other participants on the call, if you do have any questions you'd like to ask either of the speakers, please do leave it via the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. But if you'd like to direct it toward any particular speaker, then do please mention their name as well, so then they can help answer that. All right, so I'll take one that we had received. Okay, we can look at one here. There's one question on, is there a difference between a B2B pitch versus a B2C pitch?
Yes,
So-
of course. There is a complete difference in a B2B pitch. They are completely different businesses, right? In a B2B pitch, you're trying to look at what is the quality, what is your capability of selling to a B2B team. B2B pitches, by definition, depending on the kind of business, you have to have the capability to look at sell to businesses, which is different from selling to consumers at large. So these are very, very different, and therefore the market access and how you create market access. When it is a B2C, you're going to talk more about how you're going to access consumers at large. When you are B2B, you're going to discuss more about how did you get customer validation. Did you co-create the solution along with a customer? Did they participate in your product development effort? Did you work with them and co-create the product? Did they even sometimes in enterprise solutions, there are startups that tie up, like, let's say, with an Intel or a Microsoft, and they would have developed a solution under their guidance or mentorship. So you would like to specify those kinds of things, because that also adds to some kind of validation. So you need to talk about some of those things and your customer acceptance. You may not have 1,000 customers. You may have 2 customers which are very big names. You may have an Intel and you may have a Microsoft. That itself would be very big. So those are the kinds of, they are very different. I mean, while the broad elements of structure of presentation would be the same, access to market and how you approach product development and all would be very different.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that overview. Ankit, there's one question for you, which is, did you have big plans during the ideation stage? So before funding, do you think every founder should have bigger plans, say 5 or 10 years for expansion and new markets with just an idea? So how far out did you plan when you started your venture?
So when we started, we didn't have big plans, and that happens with most of the startups. Secondly, we didn't even have like a very solid financial projections in place. So I would say, like, initial years, even like a basic Excel in terms of your P&L would suffice, and how that would look after 5 years, because we don't know where the product will go, what is the scope, how much, like, there's a lot of ambiguity around it. But the passion should be reflected in your pitch and in your numbers. And one should have this attitude that whatever happens, we will be able to do it. And second thing, what happens is business plans change. Things go haywire, plans have to be changed, things tweak. It is always okay. And it is always, I think it is always better to tell that we started with this, then it didn't work out, and we we moved to plan B, or this is the plan C. So what that does, it shows your resilience to the investor that no matter what, this guy or this girl would stay, and they are in this for the long haul. So yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Ankit. All right, so you've covered this, but so there's always this dilemma between your deck, right? So there's one deck you sent to an investor before getting a meeting, and then there's another one that you go ahead and present. So how detailed should either of the two decks be? So
see, what one should do is have multiple decks. One is I never call it my pitch deck. The first deck that I send it is I call them introductory decks or introduction deck, which are giving a very high level overview of what you and your company are doing. First, so if the person gives you a meeting, then it is okay, like during the meeting you can discuss, and the person asks for more detail, then you send a detailed deck. Because what happens many times, you don't know even if the person you're talking to will give you a meeting or not. So there's no point giving out all the details at the first go. So there should be some curiosity which the other person should have while reading your first introductory deck to give you a meeting. And so that is the strategy I follow.
Perfect, thank you. Ms. Revathy, there are quite a few questions that I see, so I'm just going to club them more on what shouldn't a founder do. So if you could share what are the typical mistakes you see that any founder makes when they're making a presentation that puts you off and says, I do not want another meeting with them just yet. They need to work on it a little bit more. So what are those suggestions that you have on what founders shouldn't do?
So I think lack of clarity, investors see about 100 pitches before they even zero in on one investment. So, or even more. And therefore, I think it's like searching for a needle in a haystack, right? And you need to make that impression. And therefore, to convey that idea very, very succinctly, very crisply is so critical. I mean, the 30 or 60-second pitch that Ankit first made was so apt that it covered everything in a very succinct way. So it depends on the situation. Depending on how much time you're given, you plan your activity well. Quite often we find that entrepreneurs do not plan their presentation. If they are told that you have 5 minutes time, within 5 minutes they are still discussing, making motherhood statements, saying this is the problem. Let me take Ankit's space. So just as an example to amplify, they will explain all the problems that are faced in waste management of flowers, the temple, the pollution, and all of that. By the time 3 minutes is up, and then they have just 2 more minutes to convey what is their solution, how are they getting to the market, how are they product ready, what are their numbers. You have, and somebody is then saying, 2 minutes left, and then you're all nervous. And don't do that. Plan your activity very well. Depending on the time allotted, you don't have to say everything at the first stage. As I said earlier, your first step is to get that second meeting and leave enough hooks in the first meeting for you to get that second meeting, to say, hey, these people have phenomenal clarity of thought.
Lovely. Thank you. Ankit, there's one question for you. How do you carry forward the passion, not just on pitching day, but every day? Any practical tips? Because passion is more of emotion.
No, I live, eat, and breathe my business. I don't do anything else. I'm married to it, literally. And one thing that before I forget, so it is now almost mandatory to include a slide on COVID in your deck. Has COVID like if COVID has had positive impact on your business, negative impact, and how are you going to make a merry out of it? So that needs to be there. If make sure 100% that slide needs to be there.
Ms. Revathy, there's one question for you. What do you look for in a team of students who are starting a hardware startup in the team slide? So what would you like to see in the team slide for the same? So for a startup that's starting out in the hardware space, what would you like to see in the team slide?
In the team slide, so if you're saying hardware, as a student, remember that you don't have much past experience. So I think you need to convey the passion, the energy, and your idea has to be really strong. Quite often, if the person is a second time investor, is a serial investor, people will say, okay, that person has done a great deal, provided investors a good return. So they may not focus on all the bells and whistles as much. But when you're a young startup, which is especially a team of students, you just really need to convey that you have complementarity in your team. Somebody is a hardware specialist, somebody is got the software knowledge. So the integration of hardware and software, somebody is looking at the business and commercial side of it. So you have to convey all of this in a very succinct manner. And since you don't have a lot of experience to your credit, good research on the market, good research on your data, be diligent about the work. So you have to make up for lack of experience. So talk to enough people, make sure that you're fully ready. And the team needs to be very ready and energetic and enthusiastic. The idea, of course, needs to be great. The market has to be large enough. Those are all given. I mean, those don't change. But then if you're a team of students, you have to go that little extra mile to showcase how your idea is so innovative.
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Revathy. Ankit, there's one question, and I think you'll be apt to answer that. Any insights on how for-profit social ventures can be pitched, where financial returns and social impact go together?
I think those are easier in terms of. First thing is one should keep in mind whom they are investing to. So there are investors who would just be interested in the funding part of the money part of it. Then there are some people who would be interested in the impact plus returns part of it, which is called patient capital. So nowadays there is this complete new mushrooming of impact funds and everything that has come up. So take advantage of that. That's one. Focus more on the impact in these slides. You have to say that while we are making impact, this is how the business will be sustainable or self-sustainable. And if you can have like a certain case study on how it has impacted lives, and be very clear on the numbers of the kind of the direct impact, the indirect impact, and the tertiary impact. And if you can have a theory of change on your slides, that can go as an annexure, that could be helpful as well.
Lovely. Thanks, Ankit. Ms. Revathy, there's a question on the pitch where we keep talking about the competitor slide. So the founder is asking, do investors lose interest if the pitch shows there are competitors in the space?
No, not at all. In fact, if there are no competitors, that's also a kind of a red flag. Because if there is no competition at all, one has to really think through, is this problem a real problem? And why is it that nobody else has thought about it? At least there must be somebody who is handling it in an adjacent way or in a slightly different manner. But to say that you have zero competition, that would raise a red flag. I'm not saying it is a no, but it could raise a red flag. Absolutely, if you have competition, there is no issue at all. Remember, Google and Facebook and all of them, all the big names, were not the first kids round the block. There were several kids ahead of them. They came much later, but they executed far better. Using the experience of others, they improved and they were more innovative in the way they executed. They executed well. So absolutely no problem about having competition. You can use it to your advantage if you have studied your competition well and you know why you can be better than competition.
Lovely, thank you. There's another question, I guess, maybe both of you all could answer this. How important is storytelling in pitching? So as a professional comedian, they assist startups at seed and series A stages and make the pitch clear, concise, and engaging and customized to the specific person they are pitching to. So the question is more towards how important storytelling is in pitching. Do you factor that in when you're evaluating a startup? And I'll combine
absolutely.
that.
I think storytelling is the key. You know, if your slides are disjointed and you cannot link one slide to the other, then it's a problem. And quite often, to convey more, don't say market. You know, you can use the headings very, very cleverly to say market, growing market at such and such pace. Give some inclination as to those 2-3 points which are coming below, because those headlines catch attention. So you have to do attention catching, and the flow has to be very good. And even while you speak, if you have rehearsed it well, if you have thought about your problems well, it will flow very easily, and it will not be disjointed. Storytelling is an art, and that art of pitching is very, very critical. And that is what makes a difference between same content and a good pitch and a not so good pitch.
Lovely, thank you. The next question is, say company A has pilot tested their prototype and gathered information on what will work and what needs to be modified in their plan. The founders now find that their model will not work and need to change plans. So will this plan requires a little more funds? So will the investor fund the failed company A to revamp their business? So if they're pivoting to another model, do we evaluate?
So that's a tough one. If for example, a failed one is tough, but if you're saying that, quite often there have been cases where people have started off initially as a marketplace and then decided the marketplace, the disintermediation is very high, and from a marketplace model they have gone to a delivery model that they deliver the services. It's online delivery, and there have been cases in the past, and they have shown that the product works, that customers are willing to buy that service. So all that is validated. Now they're saying that in order to ensure that the customers remain for some more loyal to the company, and the fact that you can make better margins, you want to do it yourself. You want some additional funds. So therefore, you have validated that the service is required. The way the delivery of that service you want to change. So I won't call it a failed model. I think you're pivoting to a model which is more efficient, which can generate more business, or make it more sticky, or make it more profitable. Investors are willing to look at it. But if you say, I have a completely failed product, and now by the way, I spent that much, and now I want to do a new one, I think it's all about how you tell the story. So it comes back to how you're telling your story. You can, the same example that I gave, you can pitch it as a failed model, or you can pitch it as a success. I've already validated the idea. There is a need in the market. There are people buying the service. Now I think instead of really a marketplace, I am capable of delivering. Here are my delivery capabilities. I've already done this prototype. I need to scale this. Please give me more money. But I've already validated that the service is required and people are willing to pay for the service. So that's a very different way of telling the story.
Absolutely. And I think the more that clearly shows that you've learned, you recognize a certain problem and you're changing direction to improve that. And
yes.
Clearly
yes.
No startup ends up the way they started. There's always tweaks and models, learnings that are there that are incorporated.
Yes.
In the venture. So lovely, thank you. Ankit, if you could help answer this one, it's more in terms of, founders always get uncomfortable when they have to talk about their competitors. So how do you present who your competitors are and still show that, I am the one who will succeed?
Okay, so I have this basic rule. What I do is imagine a very small Excel with just like 5 columns. The first column will be the attributes of your startup, which are your positive points or how your competition and you are being measured. And the first row would be the name of the competitors. I cross tick. I ensure that my column has all the checkpoints and adjust the attributes unless there's something which is like really killing. I would try and show myself in a positive light. And on the same slide, I would give the market size with an asterisk with like, for example, the link from where I'm getting that market size, and talk about more positives that we have. And generally what I've found is investors, they know when you're bluffing. So hopefully you're not like, you'll have to decide where, like, there's this thin margin, right? Like what where to like sell yourself well, where to not. So you'll have to be within those boundaries, and I hope that will work.
Lovely, thank you. Ms. Revathy, there's a question for you. You've covered it, but I guess maybe they want a little bit more insight. This is a pre-seed company. So the question is, which area should an entrepreneur focus on their decks when going for a pre-seed funding, and the product is in the beta stage?
Pre-seed funding and the product is in a beta stage is a very tough one because you possibly don't have any customer validation. I'm assuming if it is an enterprise product, what you would want to ensure is that you have some collaboration or some partnership with one or more companies, customer organizations who are willing to test the product or who have already agreed to the beta version, looked at it, and now said, yeah, it works, and you make these changes, and then we are willing to look at it. So things like that. If it is a consumer B2C, then I think it's a little bit different because you have only a beta. You don't have, you should at least have tested it with some customers. If you have zero customer validation, unless your idea is so compelling and so innovative, I think it is going to be a tough call. So I think when your product is at completely beta stage and you have to focus on how compelling the value proposition is, because you don't have the support of customer validation unless some customer validation has happened even at the beta stage, which is a huge plus for a B2B company. And by the way, some of the best funding comes from, for B2B enterprise products, comes from customers who are willing to fund some of the development for even your prototyping. And in return, they may ask for something, but that's okay. And that comes with not too many strings attached. So I would, if it's a B2B, I would seriously encourage you to strike some interesting partnerships with enterprises, large enterprises who are willing to support you in some form or manner, because they give you great market access.
I wanted to add something to it.
Sure.
So all the people present on this thing, right? We entrepreneurs, I know it's very cool to like raise funds and be on the newspaper, everything, but we should be cognizant of the fact that raising equity investment is the most expensive form of capital. At this stage, the question you were answering, I would suggest not to go to an investor. You would be stuck at valuation and all that. You should go to B plan competitions, and there are so many accelerators and incubators in the country. There is a TBI in almost every city now, and there are so many government schemes and that you can take benefit of. There is Nidhi Prayas and all that. So I would say not think of investors at that beta stage unless you really need that money. Even if you need equipment, you will get it at an IIT or somewhere. So I would say like have a like little mass, like critical mass developed, only then go to investors. Otherwise you would lose a lot on the valuation at a very early stage.
Yeah, that's a terrific point, Ankit. I would really encourage companies not to raise funds too early and choose other sources, not from VCs or angel investors, but really through some of these other schemes. Yes.
Lovely. Thank you, Ms. Revathy and Ankit. The next questions, I think I can pick that. They're asking if there's any support offered by IN to prepare a pitch deck, as it is very difficult to make the satisfaction of investors in the first attempt. So I can say, yes, we do have a template that we can share with you in terms of what is the information that's required and how should you go ahead and format your pitch deck. If you write to me, I can send it across to you. My email ID is kanchi@indianangelnetwork.com. I will leave it in the chat box as well. And I'll be more than happy to share the template with you. And of course, as you're progressing with conversations with IM, before you're presenting to the investor community, we do have calls with the founders to suggest in terms of, what can they focus on in terms of their deck and the information that needs to go in and what needs to be highlighted, and then you can go ahead and present to the investor community. So both options are there. Early stage to start your deck, and then of course in terms of your pitch style a little later on as you progress with conversations. So I'm going to leave my email ID in the chat box. Ankit, there's a question for you. Is there any restriction in terms of the number of pitches you make in a year? So 4 pitches, so or
No, absolutely not. You are pitching all the time to your family, to your parents that allow you to do this, to your wife, to your friends who would ask you, what are you doing, wasting your time on this idea, nothing is happening, to your first customer, to the landlord, ki rent pe de do, to the vendor, everyone. So pitch, and pitch is basically sales, right? So you have to be the biggest sales person in your team. So there's infinite, do as many as you can.
Lovely, thank you.
Yes, to add to that, I just want to say that there are entrepreneurs who do not like this constant sales. They're very good at execution, or they're very good at coding. They're very good at doing what they know best, which is, their product, their idea, all of that. But they don't really enjoy that selling process. So quite often I hear, I've spoken to 5 investors, all have declined. I have spoken to, we tell them you have to build a better team. We hear, no, I think we have already, it's very difficult to get people because we cannot pay them the salaries. So everything has a sales element. So are you able to sell your passion, your idea, your dream, your aspiration, that they can make a better future along with you by joining you, whether as an investor, whether as an employee, whether as a vendor, whether as a partner, whether as somebody who is giving you a space on rent. You can work out innovative solutions with all of them and make them some kind of partner in your success. But the ability to constantly pitch to anybody is a basic requirement for an entrepreneur. And if you seriously do not enjoy doing it, I would say that is the biggest red flag you must have for yourself. Is entrepreneurship the right place for you to build your career or your profession?
Okay, lovely. Thank you. The next question is geared again towards you, Ms. Revathy. How do investors give market access, and what is market access exactly?
Okay, so at a very early stage, I think I would focus. We have what is called dumb money, which is money which comes, which doesn't bring anything else. It just gives you money. And I don't want to trivialize money. At a very critical stage, money is also equally important. But if you have the option, you must look at intelligent money at a very early stage. And in the early stages of your career, the more of your entrepreneurial journey, the more intelligent money you get, the better for you. That is, people who can provide you many more connects, people who can open doors for you. When you say market access, somebody can make an introduction. It's very different from writing a cold call email to somebody vis-a-vis somebody making an introduction and then getting an access to a CXO level or a CEO level person in a large company. So I think these kinds of door opening situations are very, very critical. And therefore, looking at people let's say, for example, IAN has a huge network. So a lot of people would say, yes, entrepreneurs do say, we come to IAN because, we think that we can build our brand. So many people get to know. We have over 500 investors. They come to know about us. We will get connects where we can get some doors open. So those are the things that become interesting to people. Therefore, there is a difference between getting purely money and getting money with so much more intellectual input or market connect that comes along with it.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Revathy. Ankit, if you could help answer this one, how much influence does body language of the investee have on the investor's mind? So Ms. Revathy can also help answer it, but maybe Ms. Revathy can answer it first, and then you can talk about how did you go ahead perfecting it or practicing it, or what are the strategies you used to improve?
I would say don't appear arrogant. Very quickly build that camaraderie and connect with the investor. Arrogance doesn't take you very far. Sometimes some investors tend to ask deliberately very provocative questions, and be patient. And showing that patience is important. It is somewhat like interview questions, right? Some interviewers are more soft and they want to hear your story. Some others are very harsh and they just want to provoke you. So just remember that some people will be more provocative, but try not to get provoked, but patiently answer that question.
Lovely, thank you. Ankit, if you'd like to take a dig at.
Yeah, actually, last week only an investor was telling me that now it has become so difficult because of virtual calls. They can't study the body language of the person pitching online. So body language plays a very big role. And second thing is like while you're like what I used to do earlier was I like before even starting the pitch, I would say, I don't know why I'm so nervous. I hope it goes fine. And or maybe crack a like a silly joke or something, like not an obnoxious one, a very silly joke, like according to the situation, which can help ease you and the investors as well. And like get a certain cheer or something so that it becomes easy for you to like pitch. So that is, and see, at the end of the day, we must realize that investors and us are equal in a certain way, that while we are pitching, they also need good companies to invest in. So they are also on the lookout for us. So if we like do things which are like right and certain, not like literally not very obnoxious, it is okay at the end of the day. Don't like pressurize too much on all these, otherwise you'll get stressed and your pitch won't go well. Like stay calm, sleep well, be easy, and it's a pitch at the end of the day.
And also show interest.
Yes.
Don't look disinterested, arrogant. Don't come across as flippant. When people are asking questions, the questions may sound silly to you because you are in the field day in and day out. You know the subject well. It may be genuinely a question that they're asking because they don't understand, or it may be provocative. In either case, be very patient, answer it very carefully and very diligently. I think that also creates a very, very good impression.
Yeah, and always if you have a prototype or something to show, always carry it. Like even if you're not pitching, make sure you have it in your bag. Maybe you meet someone on a flight or a train anywhere. You should always have your product with you. So that is something.
And one suggestion: keep your product demo right at the end, because quite often what happens, technology fails. So quite often people say, I'm going to start with my product demo and then I will get into the pitch itself. And at that moment, whatever all said and best laid plans of mice and men, the demo fails. For some reason, system will not load, and it creates a confusion, and there is dead space, dead time there. So I would suggest, unless you're so sure that everything is going to work well, quickly finish your presentation. You are at peace to then show your demo. Or even if you're showing your demo, be 110% sure that it's not going to be failed, because the last thing you want to do is a demo which you start keeping on working, because then it gets you even further nervous while making the pitch. The other suggestion I have is, please put your cell phones off, because the worst thing that happens is you start pitching and the phone rings and you say sorry, and then it keeps ringing, and then you're trying to fish for your phone in the pocket and switching it off and saying sorry. All that is, basic housekeeping, but still would like to tell you that you should take care of these things.
Some great insights. Thank you so much, Ms. Revathy and Ankit. There's one question which I see a couple of founders asking, which is on confidentiality of information. So how should, some are concerned about how much information they should share, because they're a little worried about that idea being stolen when they're presenting. And then there's another specific question on IP. So how should intellectual property be handled during the initial discussions? Should we use CDA? Do you suggest we have filed IP prior to discussion?
Ankit, you want to talk about it?
Yeah. So first of all, there's this feeling, right, ki idea chori ho jayega. I don't think that really happens. It's only about 10 or 20% idea, 80% is the execution. That's one. Second is, I would say there are always way to talk about your IP. And if you don't talk about your IP, then the investors wouldn't feel there's meat in the business. So you should always talk that very high level thing, that we have IP around this, so that it shows that you have done your homework and there is a credibility in the team or the idea that you are selling. And I have not, I don't know of any investors who would sign an NDA or something even before signing the deck, because generally it is very tough to even get a meeting with these people. Now, if you say, oh, sign this document only, then I'll come and meet you, then we are like killing our own chances. And generally the investors, good ones, they maintain that credibility that things don't go here and there and all that. I've not seen that happen.
Maybe.
Yeah, I agree with you. Absolutely agree with you. There is no question of any investor signing any NDA. If you can't talk about your product, then the investors in the business of seeing 100 people with that similar or idea in the adjacent spaces, and they are not going to, that is their business. So therefore, they are not going to sign any NDA. But if it is after the initial pitch, when you want more details, it is always depending on the business. Like, for example, if it is biotech or pharma formulations, those kinds of things, when you're giving more details about the science and what progress the science has made, those are all very critical information which can be used by investors, because they are not really invested in investing in you, but they are just interested in understanding what progress you have made. In those cases, it is very, very common to ask for an NDA, and it is given also. So it depends totally on the industry and the kind of business you are in. In a deep tech, deep science, biotech type of industry, after the initial talk, at the initial stage, nobody will give. But when you want further information at the second stage or third stage, when you're asking for more data, that time it's perfectly logical to ask for an NDA in such specific situations.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Revathy. Just to add a little bit to that, in terms of how it works, at IN, at least I've noticed the IN team that's working to evaluate deals, and also the IN members, each one signs an NDA with IN as an organization. so that that information is not leaked out. And then of course it'll be challenging to go ahead and sign for IAN to sign an NDA with all the 11,000 startups that we talk to every year. So this way there is a certain level of discipline maintained, because the IAN team and the investors have each one signed an NDA with IAN as an organization. And in terms of confidentiality of information, like Ankit mentioned and Ms. Revathy mentioned, you can give top level information that you're comfortable sharing. So if you think that it's extremely sensitive and that can be easily duplicated, shy away from mentioning that. Even the investors understand that it's confidential, but talk about what the IP is about, and then go ahead and delve into details as we get into diligence in the follow-on steps. All right. I think we're running out of time. It was quite a power-packed Q&A and an initial discussion as well. So on behalf of all the participants, Ms. Revathy and Ankit, thank you so very much for your valuable time and great insights. There's a lot of takeaways for the founders to go back and refine their pitch, practice, rehearse, maybe fine-tune it so that they go ahead and get their second meeting with the investors and continue to stay motivated. So thank you so very much for your insights. I did notice quite a few founders on the call today also were requesting for questions on valuations. So I just wanted to bring it up that we do have a separate session on that, which is why I didn't pick those questions up. In fact, it's the very next session. So it's going to be on 22nd of January, and it's just dedicated towards startup valuations and how much you're looking, how much should a founder raise. So do attend that. I will be dropping the registration link for that in the chat box, and along with my email ID. So if you're looking to raise capital as well, just feel free to send your deck across to me, and we'll take the conversation forward. But thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you once again, Ms. Revathy and Ankit.